The cameras had barely stopped rolling when the whispers began. Kirk Frostius, that Kirk had done something no one expected. For years, his name floated through headlines wrapped in scandal, regret, and Rasheeda's quiet strength. Fans had grown used to the cycle. Mistake, apology, makeup gift, repeat. But this time, something felt different. The mood was off. Heavier, more deliberate. It started on a quiet Monday morning when Rasheeda posted a single photo on Instagram. A black ribbon tied around a set of silver keys sitting on her boutique counter. No caption, no emojis, just the image. Within minutes, the internet caught fire. Kirk bought her another car. One fan guessed. Others said it looked like house keys. A few thought it might be the start of another love and hip-hop stunt. But then someone zoomed in. Behind the keys, faintly blurred, was the reflection of Kirk himself smiling. By noon, the blogs had headlines ready. Kirk Frost redeems himself with surprise gift for Rasheeda. The Frost empire expands again. And is this Kirk's apology for everything? Thousands of fans flooded comment sections, some cheering, others rolling their eyes. One wrote, "He's trying to buy peace again." Another said, "Nah, this feels different. He looked proud this time." But behind the filtered smiles and polished captions, there was tension. Sources close to the couple whispered that the surprise wasn't just a gesture, it was Kirk's attempt to prove something deeper. Insiders claimed he'd been planning the move for months, working quietly behind the scenes with lawyers, contractors, and business partners without telling Rasheeda a word. When he finally asked her to meet him at a location in downtown Atlanta, she didn't expect much. Maybe a dinner, maybe another pop-up event. What she found instead stopped her cold. Cameras captured the moment she stepped out of her car. Confusion washing over her face as Kirk stood there, holding out the keys. The sign behind him read in gold letters, "Frost & Frost Beauty Bar coming soon." Rasheeda's hand went to her mouth. For a moment, she didn't say a word. Fans watching later would describe it as the first time in years they'd seen her speechless. Kirk's voice was low but steady. "This one's all yours, babe. No cameras, no producers, no drama, just us building something new." But as the applause from friends and staff echoed around them, a single question began spreading online. Was this real growth, or just another performance? Because even as Rasheeda smiled for the photos, her eyes seemed to hold something else, a quiet mix of surprise, doubt, and maybe hope. And that's where it began, the story everyone's talking about right now. The gift that could rebuild a marriage or reopen old wounds. Fans say Kirk's finally changing. Others say it's just the calm before the next storm. But one thing's for sure, Atlanta hasn't seen the last of this power couple's drama. Rasheeda woke up that morning with the sound of rain tapping softly against the glass. Atlanta had that heavy gray sky that promised long hours of thought. She reached across the bed out of habit, expecting to feel Kirk beside her, but the space was empty and cool. On the nightstand, a single note rested under her phone. His handwriting was neat and deliberate. "Meet me at noon. Wear something light. Trust me." She sighed. The last time he'd said "trust me," it ended with cameras, tears, and weeks of silence between them. But this note felt different. Number apology attached. No flowers, just direction. She took her time getting ready, brushing her hair in front of the mirror, remembering how far they'd come and how much had nearly broken them. People saw the glamour, the boutiques, the matching outfits, but they didn't see the nights. She stayed up watching the numbers in their joint account dip, or the mornings he left without a word. She'd built her own name out of the ruins of what used to be theirs, and now, if he wanted her back in that world, he'd have to earn it. The drive downtown was quiet. Atlanta's skyline shimmered through the drizzle, each building reflecting the muted sun. As she turned the corner onto Peachtree Street, she spotted a small crowd near a storefront wrapped in gold ribbon. Cameras, of course. Kirk stood in front, wearing a cream jacket, his posture nervous but proud. Her heart skipped. The sight of him still did that, even when she tried to fight it. She parked, took a breath, and stepped out. The crowd turned as she approached. Phones lifted instantly. Kirk smiled, stepping forward. "You made it," he said softly, voice barely above the rain. "What's this?" she asked, eyes darting between the cameras and the massive sign draped above them. He nodded toward it, and with one quick motion, pulled the ribbon loose. Behind it, the letters gleamed, "Frost & Frost Beauty Bar." For a second, she froze. The sound of clapping blurred around her. All she could hear was her own pulse. Kirk handed her a set of key silver, polished, engraved with the letter R. "This is yours," he said. "All yours. No strings, no producers, no VH1, just you and me building something real again." The cameras caught every flicker of her expressions, disbelief, a flicker of guarded warmth. She smiled faintly but didn't speak. Kirk went on, his voice steady. I know I can't change the past, but I can build something that reminds you who we are when it's just us. This place is your vision. Your name. I just made the space to make it happen. Someone in the crowd whispered, he's really trying this time, and the murmur spread. Fans watching live started flooding comments. This is redemption. Rasheeda deserves this. He finally gets it. Inside, the beauty bar was a dream white marble counters, rose gold mirrors, soft blush lighting. It smelled like new beginnings. Rasheeda walked slowly through the space, fingertips grazing the velvet chairs, the neatly arranged displays waiting to be filled with her products. Kirk followed quietly, keeping a respectful distance. You did all this without telling me? She finally asked, turning to face him. I wanted it to be a surprise, he said. I didn't want to promise anything until I knew I could deliver. And why now? Because I got tired of hearing myself apologize. I wanted to do something instead of saying it. She studied him. His eyes didn't shift the way they used to when he was hiding something. They held steady. Maybe it was age, maybe exhaustion, or maybe he was just ready to stop pretending. As they stood there, the production crew stepped back, giving them space. It wasn't a scene for the show anymore. It was something quieter. Roar. I don't know if this fixes anything, she said finally. I'm not asking it to, Kirk replied. I just want a place that reminds us what we can still build. She nodded slowly. Then let's see if it lasts. That night, the clip hit every blog from Atlanta to The comments were divided. Some said it was scripted, a typical Frost-style stunt for ratings. Others swore they saw something genuine in the way Kirk looked at her. Even Carly Red went live, saying, listen, I know Kirk. That man don't move like this unless he means it. He's either deeply sorry or planning something big. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Rasheeda sat alone in her home office, scrolling through the posts. She saw the love, the skepticism, the jokes. But one comment stopped her. It read, growth looks good on you, but don't let it blind you. She stared at it for a long time, wondering if the stranger who wrote it understood more than they should. Her phone buzzed. It was Kirk. You home? He texted. Yeah, I'm on my way. The message felt familiar, but this time, it didn't tighten her chest. She closed her phone and glanced at the photo on her desk their wedding day, before the fame, before the cameras. Two people who still believed forever was simple. An hour later, Kirk walked in quietly. He didn't bring gifts, just takeout and tired eyes. They ate together in silence until she finally spoke. You really think this will change anything? I think it's a start, he said. You don't have to forgive me today. Just meet me halfway. She leaned back, studying him again. The sincerity was there, but so was fear, the kind that comes from knowing this might be your last chance to get it right. Outside, thunder rolled, and the rain began again. Soft at first, then heavier. Kirk looked at her, waiting for a sign. She didn't give one. Instead, she said quietly, if this is real, Kirk, you'll have to prove it every single day. No headlines, no acting. Just show up. He nodded, almost relieved. I can do that. But even as he said it, somewhere deep inside, she wondered if he really could, because for all the promises he'd made before, this one felt like the hardest, staying true when no one's watching. The next morning, their phones wouldn't stop buzzing. Everyone wanted interviews, comments, sponsorships. The network producers were thrilled. This is gold, one of them said. Fans love redemption arcs. Kirk smiled politely, but Rasheeda just looked out the window, the weight of it all pressing down again. She'd been here before the rise, the spotlight, the illusion of healing, and yet something about this moment refused to settle as fake. That night, when the boutique lights dimmed and the cameras left, Kirk stayed behind, wiping down the counters himself. Rasheeda walked in quietly and watched. He didn't notice her at first. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost meditative. You don't have to do that, she said softly. I know, he replied, but I want to. This place means something. For the first time in a long time, she believed him, not completely, but enough to stay a little longer, enough to see where it would lead. As the night ended, Atlanta lights flickered outside, and inside that beauty bar, two people stood surrounded by silence, unsure of what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, neither of them walked away. The following morning brought a new kind of noise. Bloggers, gossip channels, and fans dissected every second of Kirk's grand gesture. Screenshots of Rasheeda's surprised face flooded social media with captions like he finally did something right, and this might be their redemption arc. But in the Frost household, the mood wasn't nearly as glossy. Rasheeda sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone, expression unreadable. Kirk entered quietly, still in his robe, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "They're talking about it, huh?" he said, setting one in front of her. "They're always talking," she replied without looking up. He hesitated, trying to read her tone. "You mad I made it public?" She looked up finally, her eyes sharp but calm. "No, I just didn't expect the whole city to know before I even processed it. I didn't leak it, Sheeda. Somebody from the crew must have." "It's fine," she cut in. "We live on camera anyway, right?" He sighed and leaned against the counter. "Look, I did this because I wanted to show you I'm serious. The business is real. The paperwork's in your name. I ain't trying to pull another stunt." She studied him for a long moment, then asked quietly, "And if it hadn't gone viral, would you still mean it?" He blinked, caught off guard. "Yeah, of course." "Good," she said simply, then slid her phone aside. "Because I'm not going through another round of fake peace for likes." The tension hung heavy between them, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Then Kirk's phone buzzed a call from Mona Scott. He glanced at it, hesitated, then answered. "Yeah, Mona, I saw the numbers. It's trending, huh?" His voice softened as he listened. "Yeah, we can talk filming next week, but this ain't no storyline. Okay, this one's real." Rasheeda watched him, arms folded. When he hung up, she raised an eyebrow. "You told her that and she believed you." He gave a small laugh. "Doesn't matter if she does. I meant what I said." Later that day, they arrived together at the beauty bar for the first official walkthrough. The place still smelled of fresh paint and promise. Interior designers moved around with sketches, and staff began setting up workstations. Rasheeda took it all in with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "You really went all in on this," she said. "Had to," Kirk replied. "I wanted to build something that outlasts all that drama we've been through. Something the kids can look at and feel proud of." "You think a beauty bar can fix that?" "No," he admitted, "but it's a start." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Carly Red, of course, strutting in like she owned the place. Well, well, well. "If it isn't Mr. Redemption himself," she teased, pulling off her sunglasses. "You really outdid yourself this time, Kirk." Rasheeda smirked. "Carly, what are you doing here?" "Girl, I had to see this with my own eyes. Everybody's talking. Even Spice said, if Kirk can change, maybe men got hope after all." Kirk chuckled awkwardly, but Rasheeda just shook her head. "You know how people love a storyline." "Oh, it's definitely a storyline," Carly said, glancing around. "But it's also kinda sweet. I'll give you that." She leaned closer to Rasheeda and lowered her voice. "You trust it though?" Rasheeda hesitated. "I want to." Carly nodded knowingly. "Just make sure it ain't another chapter that ends in tears." As soon as she left, Kirk exhaled hard. "She always gotta stir something up." "That's what she does," Rasheeda said. "But sometimes she's not wrong." Over the next few days, news spread fast. The Shade Room posted clips, fans made reaction videos, and rumors started swirling that the couple might be planning to renew their vows. Kirk denied it, but when paparazzi caught him browsing jewelry stores, the speculation exploded. Rasheeda confronted him that night. "You went shopping for rings." "Not rings," he said quickly. "Just looking at pieces for the store opening." "I swear." "You sure that's all it was?" "Yeah, come on, Sheeda. I told you I'm done with surprises. I learned my lesson." She eyed him carefully. "I'll believe that when I stop finding out things from the blogs before I hear them from you." He rubbed his temples, frustrated. "You really think I'd mess up again after all this?" "I think you've done it enough times that I can't unlearn the pattern overnight." The silence that followed said everything. Years of history pressed between them, both love and exhaustion tangled in equal measure. By the weekend, the Frost and Frost Beauty Bar hosted its private soft launch for close friends and influencers. Lights flashed, music played, champagne flowed. Rasheeda looked stunning in a white jumpsuit, her confidence glowing even brighter than the cameras surrounding her. Kirk stayed close, but didn't overshadow her. He let her take the spotlight. For once, it wasn't about him. Midway through the night, a surprise guest appeared, Yandi Smith, all smiles and hugs. "Sis, this is beautiful," she said, looking around. "You really turned the pain into power." Rasheeda smiled, touched. It's been a long road." Yandi gave Kirk a polite nod. "Good to see you, too, Kirk. I hope you're keeping it peaceful." "Doing my best," he said, managing a half smile. As the event carried on, social media filled with clips captioned "The Frost Empire Reborn." But outside that glow, not everyone was celebrating. Jasmine Washington, Kirk's former scandal that never quite faded, posted a cryptic story that night. a black heart emoji and the words, "Some people forget who helped build their empire." The internet erupted. Within hours, bloggers claimed she was throwing shade at the Frost's new launch. Kirk denied any contact, but the damage was done. The next morning, ATL Scoop posted screenshots of supposed messages between Kirk and Jasmine dated just 2 weeks before the launch. Rasheeda stared at her phone in disbelief. Her stomach turned cold. "Kirk, what is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. He looked up from his laptop, confused. "What?" She held out the screen. "Tell me this ain't real." His expression faltered. "That's fake. I haven't talked to her in months." "Then why she got receipts?" "She always got something to post when we happy. You know how she play this game." Rasheeda closed her eyes, breathing deeply. "You better pray that's true, Kirk, because if it's not, you just buried every ounce of progress we made." He stepped closer, desperate. "Sheeda, look at me. I'm not that man anymore. I'm not." But she turned away, whispering more to herself than to him. "We'll see." Outside, rain started again, just like the morning this story began. And as the lights inside the beauty bar flickered against the storm, the question hung heavier than ever: had Kirk truly changed, or was this just another beautiful lie waiting to unravel? The next few days felt like a slow-motion replay of every heartbreak Rasheeda had ever endured. The internet tore through the story like vultures, posting old clips, past apologies, and side-by-side time. Gossip channels ran headlines like "Kirk Frost caught again," and "Is Jasmine back in the picture?" One blog even claimed that Jasmine had been seen near the same plaza as the beauty bar days before the opening. The noise was constant, and it hurt, not because Rasheeda believed it all, but because it felt too familiar. The pattern she had worked years to escape was finding its way back. She refused to address it publicly, though. She'd learned her lesson about fighting digital fires that only burned her image further. Instead, she buried herself in work. The beauty bar became her shield. She spent hours with the team, checking inventory, arranging displays, and perfecting layouts. If she stayed busy enough, maybe she wouldn't have to think about it. But even in the soft hum of the shop's background music, Kirk's absence echoed loud. He hadn't shown up since that night, not in person. He texted her every morning, short messages like "thinking about you" or "call me when you're ready." She read them all, but replied to none. On the third day, Yandy called. Her tone was calm but firm. "Sis, you gotta talk to him. The longer you stay silent, the more they fill the blanks for you." Rasheeda leaned against the counter, staring at the empty chairs. "I know," she said softly. "I just don't have the energy for another cycle." Yandy sighed. "You love him?" "Love don't mean blind," Rasheeda replied. "I gave him too many chances to show me who he was. Maybe I need to start believing it." That evening, Kirk finally showed up. No camera crew, no fanfare, just him in a gray hoodie, eyes tired, and voice low. "I had to see you," he said as she looked up from her desk. "You shouldn't be here," she answered. "People already think this is some PR stunt." He stepped closer. "Then let them think what they want. I'm here for you, not them." Her arms crossed instinctively. "Then start acting like it. Stop feeding the stories." He nodded, pulling his phone from his pocket. "Look, these messages. Fake. I talked to my lawyer, and we traced where they came from. Somebody spoofed an old number Jasmine used." He scrolled, showing her the screenshots and technical details. "They're lying, Sheeda, trying to keep us stuck in the same mess." She stared at the screen, unsure whether to believe him. The explanation made sense, but so had others before. "So you're saying this whole thing's made up?" she asked quietly. "I'm saying I didn't do this. I'm not him anymore." His voice broke slightly at the end, the weight of years pushing against the promise. Rasheeda looked away, emotions tightening in her chest. "You don't get to say that," she whispered. "Not yet. Not until time proves it." A long silence stretched between them. Kirk finally said, "I'll give you space, but I'm not walking away." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "You said once you wanted something real. I'm still trying to give you that, even if it's messy." She didn't reply, and he left quietly, closing the door behind him. The next morning, her phone buzzed again, this time with a different name flashing across the screen. "Jasmine," the message read. "You think you know the truth, but you only see what he shows you." Rasheeda stared at it, her stomach sinking. She didn't reply, just blocked the number. But something inside her shifted. She knew she couldn't keep living in reaction to rumors. If Kirk was lying, she'd find out on her own terms. If he was telling the truth, he'd prove it through consistency, not words. That night, she sat on the boutique floor surrounded by boxers, lost in thought. She remembered the early days when she and Kirk built everything from nothing. When love wasn't performance, when struggle made them stronger instead of bitter. She wanted that again, not the perfect photo, not the applause, just quiet honesty. 2 days later, Kirk returned again, but this time he didn't come empty. He brought a small velvet box. Rasheeda frowned when she saw it. If that's jewelry, Kirk, don't bother. He smiled faintly. It's not jewelry. He opened it to reveal a folded letter inside, worn and creased. This was from our first year in business, he said. You wrote it when we almost lost the store lease. Said if we survived that, we could survive anything. He handed it to her gently. You kept this? She asked. Always, he said, because it reminded me who we were before the cameras. She unfolded the letter and read it silently, eyes softening at her own handwriting. Our love is our brand. If we protect that, everything else will come. She looked up at him slowly. You really think we can find that again? He nodded, tears welling but unshed. If we fight for it like we used to. For the first time since the rumors began, she believed he might mean it. They spent that evening cleaning the shop together in silence, small gestures replacing heavy words. When he swept, she wiped counters. When he fixed a broken frame, she adjusted the lights. It felt human, again imperfect, but real. Outside, Atlanta pulsed with noise and lights, but inside, frost and frost. There was only the hum of soft music and the quiet sound of two people trying, truly trying, to start over. Still, deep down, Rasheeda knew the test wasn't over. Every piece they found came with a storm waiting somewhere ahead, and though the world might have started to believe Kirk had changed, the only heart that truly mattered was hers, and it wasn't ready to trust completely just yet. A week later, the storm had mostly passed online, but the tension still lived in the air between them. The story had cooled enough for the blogs to move on to their next scandal. But inside the Frost household, silence still lingered like smoke. Kirk had been showing up to the beauty bar every day without fail, helping fix shelves, reviewing paperwork, even handling supply runs himself. He never complained, never raised his voice, never once mentioned Jasmine or the rumors again. It wasn't grand or dramatic, but Rasheeda noticed. Every quiet act of effort carved a small space in the wall she had built between them. On a humid Saturday afternoon, she found him sitting on the floor of the beauty bar surrounded by paperwork, receipts, and blueprints for expansion. His hoodie sleeves were pushed up, his hair uncombed, and his face tired but focused. You planning to build a second one already? She asked. He looked up, startled, then smiled a little. Nah, just trying to make sure this one stays open. She stepped closer. You don't have to do all this alone, Kirk. He shrugged. I messed up enough times. Least I can do is get it right now. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You really think this is how you fix us? Business? He looked at her for a long moment before answering. No, I just think building something together reminds us we can still stand on the same side. She didn't respond, but her eyes softened. They stayed that way for a while, silent except for the faint sound of rain outside. Later that evening, Carly stopped by again, her usual dramatic energy filling the room. So y'all back on speaking terms now or what? She teased, tossing her purse on a chair. Rasheeda rolled her eyes. Why you always appear when we trying to breathe? Carly laughed. Girl, I breathe drama. But I came to drop this off. She handed Rasheeda a glossy invitation. Mona's throwing a private cast dinner next Friday. Mandatory attendance. Don't shoot the messenger. Kirk groaned softly. Man, I just knew that was coming. It'll be fine, Carly said, smirking. You two showing up together gonna break the internet again. Y'all love that spotlight. Rasheeda frowned. We don't love it, we survive it. Carly tilted her head. Same difference, babe. She left soon after, leaving behind her perfume and her prophecy. That night, Rasheeda sat beside Kirk on the couch, both quiet as the TV played some reality rerun. After a few minutes, she spoke without looking at him. You gonna go to that dinner? He nodded slowly. If you go, she sighed. Mona will spin whatever she wants, no matter what we do. Kirk nodded again. Then maybe let her spin something true for once. The following Friday, they arrived together. The restaurant lights were low, the air heavy with whispered conversations and camera lenses hidden in plain sight. Mona Scott greeted them with her trademark smile. My favorite couple, she said. You look good, both of you. The fans are rooting for you. Rasheeda smiled politely. They root for the story, Mona. Not always the truth. Mona's grin faltered for half a second before she shifted topics. Just know people love a comeback. Use that energy. The dinner was calm at first. Champagne, laughter, polite exchanges. But peace never lasted long in that crowd. Halfway through, Spice brought up the headlines. So Kirk, she said with a sly grin, you really done with the old flames, or just rebranding? The table went quiet. Kirk glanced at Rasheeda before answering. I'm done with anything that hurts her. That's my final answer. Spice chuckled, raising her glass. Well, all right then. I'll drink to that. After dinner, they stepped outside to a wall of flashing lights and reporters shouting questions. Is the marriage officially back on track? What about Jasmine's claims? Kirk didn't answer, just reached for Rasheeda's hand. She hesitated for half a second, then let him hold it. The cameras caught it instantly, fingers interlocked, her expression guarded but calm, his steady and protective. Within hours, the image was everywhere, captioned the Frost Unity moment. That night, back home, Rasheeda scrolled through the photos again. They make it look so perfect, she murmured. Kirk leaned against the doorframe, watching her. We don't gotta be perfect, he said quietly. We just gotta be real. She put her phone down and looked at him. Then be real with me. What are you afraid of losing this time? He took a deep breath. You, he said simply. Not the money, not the business, not the fame. Just you. I already learned what life feels like without peace, and I don't want that again. His honesty disarmed her. For once, there was no defensiveness, no charm, no quick fix. Just truth. She stood up and walked closer. Then stop chasing headlines. Stop letting people see what's supposed to be ours. He nodded. Deal. For a few days, peace returned like fragile sunlight after a storm. They worked side by side again at the beauty bar, filmed short promos for the business, and even posted a joint video thanking fans for their support. The comments were filled with hearts and hopeful emojis, but one comment stood out. Growth looks good on you both. Just don't forget why you needed it. Rasheeda saved it quietly, reading it again before bed. Still, in the corner of her mind, something stirred, a small voice reminding her that every calm they'd ever had was only a pause before the next test. And though Kirk had been showing change in every way he could, she knew one truth too well. Love in the spotlight never stays simple for long. The Frost and Frost Beauty Bar had become a quiet success. Customers loved it. Bloggers called it Atlanta's new glam corner. And Rasheeda finally started to smile again, small, genuine smiles that reached her eyes. Kirk noticed every one of them. He'd begun showing up early before the staff arrived, bringing her coffee, turning on the lights, fixing shelves, and sitting in silence while she checked orders. For the first time in years, they were functioning like partners again, not characters trapped in a show. But peace, in their world, never lasted long. One Monday morning, while Rasheeda was organizing her schedule, a producer from VH1 called. They wanted to film a follow-up special, Where Are They Now style segment about her new business and the Frost marriage's apparent revival. She hesitated. I don't want to turn this into another storyline, she said. The producer's voice was smooth. It's not like that, just a small feature. Positive, uplifting. The fans want to see your growth. She almost said no, but Kirk, overhearing, gently placed his hand on hers. Maybe it's time they see who we really are now, he said. Filming began that Friday. The crew brought lights, cameras, and questions that cut too close. What makes you trust Kirk again? How do you know this isn't just for the cameras? She kept her answers careful, measured. I don't know the future, she said in one clip, but I know effort when I see it, and that's what matters right now. Kirk watched her with quiet pride. As the episode aired weeks later, the response was overwhelming. Fans flooded her comments with love, praising her strength and calling Kirk the comeback husband. But amid the support came whispers again. Old footage resurfaced. Old wounds reopened. One gossip blogger posted a video titled Can Cheaters Really Change?, using their photos as the thumbnail. It hit a nerve. Kirk saw it first and slammed his laptop shut, muttering under his breath. Rasheeda walked in, sensing the shift. What now? She asked. He shook his head. Nothing. Just more noise. Later that night, she found him sitting outside on the porch, staring at the rain. You okay? She asked softly. Yeah, he said, then paused. It's just, no matter what I do, people always think I'm lying. She sat beside him, her voice calm. Then stop proving it to them. Prove it to me. He looked at her, his expression heavy with guilt and love mixed together. That's all I've been trying to do, he said quietly. The following weekend, they decided to take a break. No cameras, no business, just them. Kirk booked a cabin 2 hours outside Atlanta. The drive was peaceful, music low, hands touching occasionally but not holding. When they arrived, the woods were still, the air cool and clean. Rasheeda breathed deeply, letting the silence wrap around her. No phones, Kirk said, placing both their devices in a drawer. Just us. She smiled faintly. We'll see if you last a day without your phone. For 2 days, they cooked together, talked about the kids, reminisced about old times. One night by the fire, Rasheeda said, "You know what hurts most about the past?" Kirk looked up. "What?" "Not the cheating," she said. "The lies. The pretending. It made me question everything that was ever real." He nodded slowly. "I get that. And I hate that I made you feel that way. I can't take it back, but I'm here now. Different." Her eyes softened. "You say that like you mean it." "Because I do," he said. "Look around. There's no camera, no script, no audience. Just me telling you the truth." She stared into the fire for a long moment before whispering, "Then maybe it's time I start believing again." The trip ended with quiet laughter and shared peace. When they returned to Atlanta, fans had already begun buzzing about their mystery getaway. Paparazzi photos of them laughing at a gas station went viral. For once, the headlines were kind. Kirk and Rasheeda Frost spotted happier than ever. But behind that piece, another story was forming. One of Kirk's old business partners, Lamar, suddenly resurfaced with claims that Kirk owed him money from a past deal. He went live on Instagram, waving papers, saying, "He playing the nice husband on TV but he still owe me 20 grand. Within hours, blogs picked it up. The Frost name trended again, not for love, but for scandal. Rasheeda saw it before Kirk did. Her heart sank. "Tell me this isn't true," she said, walking into the living room where he was scrolling through his phone. He froze. "Sheeda, I can explain." "You always can," she said bitterly. "So go ahead." He rubbed his face. "It was old business. From before all this, I thought it was handled." She folded her arms. "You thought or you hoped?" He looked up at her, frustrated. "Why you always assume the worst?" "Because I learned to," she said quietly. The argument that followed was softer than their old ones but still painful. Kirk promised to fix it, to pay whatever needed paying. "I'm not letting this ruin what we just rebuilt," he said. But the damage was already bleeding online. Every gossip page framed it as Kirk Frost caught in money mess again. Sponsors began to hesitate, and even fans started asking, why does drama always find them? The next few days blurred into tension and exhaustion. Rasheeda kept working at the beauty bar, but her smiles faded again. Kirk, desperate to keep her faith, sold one of his bikes to settle the debt quietly. When she found out, she was stunned. "You did that for me?" she asked. He nodded. "No, I did it for us." For the first time, she didn't doubt his answer. And that's where the shift began. Slowly, quietly, away from the cameras, away from the gossip. For once, Kirk wasn't defending himself online or chasing headlines. He was just showing up every morning, every night, no excuses. But life had one more test waiting for them, one that neither could see coming. The peace that followed was quiet but uneasy, like a calm sea before the wind changes. Days melted into each other. The beauty bar buzzed with steady business. Kirk handled logistics, Rasheeda handled clients. And for a while, it almost felt normal. But there was something strange creeping at the edges of that peace, something neither of them talked about but both could feel. It began with a text. Late one night, while Kirk was in the shower, his phone lit up on the dresser. Rasheeda hadn't meant to look. She was just passing by when the notification caught her eye. On unsaved number. A simple message. "I heard you made it right. Proud of you." She frowned, not recognizing the number. No emoji, no name, just words that lingered too warmly. She didn't open it. Instead, she walked away, trying to trust the new calm they had built. But the words echoed in her head all night. The next morning, Kirk acted normal, making breakfast, cracking jokes, planning the day. But Rasheeda's smile didn't reach her eyes. Trust was a fragile thing. One strange text could shake it to pieces. By noon, she asked casually, "Anyone been checking on you lately?" He shrugged. "Nah, just business stuff." "Why?" "No reason," she said, though her tone gave it away. Kirk studied her quietly. "Something wrong?" She shook her head, forcing a smile. "Nope, everything's fine." But it wasn't. A few days later, while reviewing finances for the beauty bar, Rasheeda noticed something odd: 2 recent withdrawals labeled as vendor payments that didn't match any of their suppliers. Small amounts, spaced apart, but still off. When she asked the accountant, he said Kirk had approved them personally. Her stomach tightened. That night, after the shop closed, she waited for him to finish locking up. "Kirk," she said, her voice low, "what are these?" She slid the printed receipts across the counter. He frowned, then glanced at them. "Oh, those, just clearing up a few small debts from the Lamar situation." "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Because it wasn't worth another argument," he said honestly. "I fixed it, that's all that matters." She wanted to believe him. Maybe she even did. But the seed of doubt had already taken root. 2 days later, during a casual meeting at the beauty bar, Yandy and Carly stopped by again. They were mid-conversation when Carly leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Girl, you heard what's going around. Somebody say Kirk been talking to a promoter chick down at Club Blue." Rasheeda froze for a second before managing a calm laugh. "You really believe everything you hear?" Carly held up her hands. "Hey, I'm just saying what people sayin'. Atlanta talks. That's all." Yandi shot her a warning look. "Don't start, Carly." But Rasheeda's mood shifted. She smiled through the rest of the conversation, but the laughter didn't feel real. After they left, she sat alone in the office, staring at her phone, fighting the urge to check his messages. That night, Kirk noticed her silence. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, staring at the TV. "Just tired." He turned the volume down. "You sure?" She nodded again, but her voice was flat. "I'm sure." The next morning, she decided to test something. "Hey," she said, casually, "you know anyone named Nia? Works at Club Blue." Kirk blinked. "Nia? Yeah, she does promotions." "Why?" "Just curious," she said. "Someone mentioned her." "Yeah, she helped me set up that event last year. Remember? Before all this." "What's up?" "Nothing," she said. "Just making conversation." But her chest felt tight. She wanted to believe his answer, but the timing felt wrong. Everything always came back to just business. That night, she couldn't sleep. The city outside was quiet, but her thoughts weren't. Around 2 a.m., she got up, went downstairs, and sat in the living room, scrolling aimlessly. Then her phone buzzed. An unknown number again. This time, a message. "You think he's changed, but some habits don't die." Her hand froze on the screen. She didn't reply, just stared at it, heart pounding. The next morning, Kirk found her sitting at the kitchen table, phone beside her, eyes red from no sleep. "You okay?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her voice cold and trembling. "Tell me the truth, Kirk. Who's been texting you?" His brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Don't," she snapped. "Don't act like I'm crazy. I've seen the messages." He looked stunned. "Messages? From who?" "I don't know," she said, her voice cracking. "Maybe you tell me." He grabbed his phone, flipping through his messages, showing her the screen. Nothing suspicious. No unknown numbers. "See," he said. "There's nothing here." "Then why is someone texting me like they know something?" she whispered. He reached out, but she pulled away. "Rasheeda, listen to me. I don't know who that is, but I swear on everything, it's not me." She stared at him for a long moment, searching his eyes for the lie, but what she saw was exhaustion. Real, raw exhaustion. For a moment, she almost pitied him. "Then find out who's doing it," she said finally. "Because if you don't, I will." For the next few days, Kirk turned detective. He traced numbers, called contacts, even met with the club promoter to clear his name. It turned out the messages were coming from a fake account, someone trying to stir trouble between them. "Probably Lamar or someone from that circle," Kirk said, handing her the printout. "Somebody trying to make us implode." She looked at the evidence, the fake accounts, the dates, the messages, and finally exhaled. For the first time in weeks, she believed him again. "I just want peace," she said softly. "That's all I've ever wanted." He pulled her close. "Then let's keep fighting for it." And for a brief moment, it felt like the war had ended. But what neither of them knew was that the real betrayal wasn't coming from the outside this time. It was already inside their circle, someone they both trusted. Someone who had been smiling with them, filming with them, celebrating their comeback. All while waiting for the right moment to tear it apart. It happened on a Thursday. The kind of warm Atlanta day that made everything feel ordinary. Business was running smooth. The beauty bar had steady appointments. And Kirk had spent most of the morning organizing a shipment, while Rasheeda met a few new stylists for hiring. The day looked calm on the outside, but fate had been waiting for that exact stillness to drop its next hit. Around noon, her phone started buzzing uncontrollably. At first she ignored it. Clients were talking. Cameras were rolling, and she hated interruptions. But when the fifth call came in, all from different numbers, she felt the shift. She walked to the back room, answered with a careful hello, and heard only chaos on the other end. A fan's voice, loud, excited, panicked. "Rasheeda girl, is it true? That clip everywhere." She frowned. "What clip?" The line went dead. She switched to Instagram and saw it instantly, trending at the top of every blog. Leaked audio. Kirk Frost caught on call complaining about Rasheeda and VH1 producers. The thumbnail was his face from a recent event, mid-laugh, the caption screaming betrayal. She clicked before she could think. The voice was unmistakable. Kirk's. Tired, frustrated, raw. "Man, I only do this for the cameras. Half the stuff they film ain't even real." Rasheeda know that. She just act like she don't. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her throat closed around the air. The clip was 30 seconds long, cut perfectly, enough to sound damning. He'd said other things too, something about playing the game, something about keeping the brand alive. By the time she reached the end, her vision blurred. Outside, laughter and conversation filled the shop, but she couldn't hear any of it. She just stared at the screen while her reflection looked back at her, angry, humiliated, tired, beyond words. Within an hour, the blogs had their headlines ready. So was the Frost comeback fake? Rasheeda played again. Kirk caught talking slick behind her back. She called him immediately. No answer. Again, voicemail. Again, nothing. Her chest tightened as she grabbed her keys and walked straight out of the shop, ignoring the cameras, ignoring the staff asking if she was okay. She found him at home, sitting in the backyard with his phone buzzing nonstop beside him. When she appeared at the door, he already knew. You saw it, he said quietly. She didn't shout, didn't even raise her voice. You tell me what I just heard. He stood up, rubbing his forehead. It's not what it sounds like, Sheeda. It never is, she said bitterly. Listen, he started, stepping closer. That recording, it's old. From months ago. Me and one of the producers got into it. I was mad. They twisted it. You said I act for the cameras, she said, eyes glistening but steady. You said everything was fake. I was talking about them, not you. About how they push us to create drama for the show. She stared at him for a long time, her breathing uneven. You really expect me to believe that? I swear to God, that's the truth, he said. They edited it to look bad. Please, just let me explain. She walked past him, her voice low and shaking. You don't get to explain every time you mess up, Kirk. There's always an excuse, always a story, always someone else to blame. I'm tired. He reached for her arm, but she pulled away sharply. Don't, she said. Not right now. The following hours were chaos. Phones ringing, producers calling, fans debating. VH1 released a short statement denying involvement, but that didn't stop the noise. Bloggers replayed the audio nonstop, adding dramatic captions, counting views like coins. Every outlet wanted a reaction from her, but she stayed silent. Silence, she decided, was the only power left. Meanwhile, Kirk went on his own live stream, voice tight but controlled. The recording's fake, he said. Somebody edited old footage and audio to make me look bad. Me and my wife are solid. Stop playing with our marriage for clicks. The comments section was a war zone. Half believed him, half called him a liar. Rasheeda watched in another room, eyes fixed on the screen. His words sounded sincere, but something deep inside her stayed cold. After years of public battles, of repairing what he broke under the spotlight, she no longer knew what truth even looked like. The next morning, a new twist came. Someone sent her the full recording. It was longer, 5 minutes this time, and in it, she heard not only Kirk's voice but another familiar one. Carly Red's. They buy it though. Carly laughed in the clip. All you gotta do is smile and hold her hand on camera. And Kirk replied, yeah, they love that image. As long as the ratings go up, everybody wins. The phone slipped from Rasheeda's hand. She sat down slowly, staring at the floor. Betrayal, layered on betrayal. Not just Kirk this time, but her own friend. By noon, she had stopped answering calls. By 3, she had packed a small overnight bag. Kirk came home to find the lights off and the house quiet. Her note sat on the counter. I need time. Stop trying to fix this with words. I'll know the truth when the noise dies down. He sank into a chair, face buried in his hands. Outside, the sound of rain began again, steady, relentless. Atlanta storms always came the same way, sudden, heavy, and cleansing. The next few days blurred into silence. She stayed at a friend's condo across town, ignoring the world. The blogs screamed new theories, divorce rumors rise again. Carly and Kirk plotted behind her back. But she stopped reading. She spent hours staring at the city lights, asking herself what forgiveness even meant anymore. Meanwhile, Kirk tracked down the source of the leak. It wasn't VH1, not a hacker, not even a stranger. It was a crew member, a quiet assistant who'd been around them for years, filming their scenes, hearing their arguments, and secretly recording the background chatter for money. That assistant had sold the clip to a gossip blogger for $5,000. When Kirk found out, he exploded, but it was too late. The damage was done. He tried to call her again, finally leaving a voice note. Sheeda, I found who did it. I'm sending you everything. I know you don't trust me right now, but please see for yourself. She opened the file the next morning. It showed emails, receipts, the assistant's confession. The truth was clear. Kirk hadn't lied this time. He'd been framed by someone who saw their pain as profit. Still, even knowing that, something inside her didn't fully heal. Trust once cracked never went back to perfect. When she finally returned home a week later, Kirk didn't rush her. He just stood in the doorway, silent, waiting. She set her bag down and looked at him for a long moment. "You were telling the truth," she said quietly. He nodded. "Yeah," she sighed. "But the truth keeps finding its way into the worst people's hands." He smiled faintly, pain and love mixed in his eyes. "Then we build something that no one can sell next time." For the first time in a long while, she didn't argue. She just stepped closer and whispered, "We'll see if it's possible." Outside, the rain stopped, the clouds thinned, and sunlight spilled across the house, warm and forgiving. 3 weeks passed before Rasheeda said a single word publicly. The silence had driven the blogs mad. Fans kept tagging her in posts, begging for a statement. Gossip vloggers built whole episodes around her absence, calling it the Frost disappearance arc. Kirk did a few interviews on his own.com/humble, repeating the same line, "We're taking time to heal privately." But everyone knew that silence had weight. It meant something was coming. And it did. One bright Monday morning, Rasheeda walked into Frost & Frost Beauty Bar wearing a long cream coat. Her hair tied up, no makeup except a faint gloss. Her team froze when they saw her. She hadn't been there since the scandal broke. Without saying a word, she walked to the center mirror, adjusted her reflection, and told her assistant, "Set up a live." When the red light blinked on, thousands joined within seconds. Comments flooded the screen. "Queen back. We missed you. Tell us what really happened." She looked straight at the lens, voice calm but sharp. "Y'all know me," she began. "You've seen me laugh, you've seen me cry, and you've seen me hold my family together when it was falling apart. So let me say this once and for all, what you heard wasn't the truth. It was a cut-up lie made by people who profit off pain." Her tone stayed steady, but her eyes were fierce. "Someone recorded my husband without permission, sold it, and sat back while the world dragged us again. But I'm not here to defend Kirk. I'm here to defend my peace. I'm not perfect, he's not perfect, but we're real. And I'm done letting strangers decide our worth." The comments exploded, applause emojis, hearts, fans cheering her name. But she wasn't done. To every woman watching who's ever been embarrassed, lied on, or turned into a headline, this is for you. Your story is still yours. And to the ones who used hours to make money, congratulations. You made me stronger. She ended the live without tears, without drama, just a long exhale and a final line that hit like scripture. "We survived worse. This ain't the end. It's the rebuild." Within an hour, the clip was everywhere. The Shade Room, On Site, Baller Alert, all reposted it with captions like "Rasheeda reclaims her crown" and "The Queen speaks." Fans rallied behind her, calling it her Phoenix moment. Kirk stayed quiet online, letting her words carry. That same evening, she returned home. Kirk was sitting on the couch watching her live replay on TV, his eyes red. When she entered, he stood. "You did that," he said softly. "You told the truth." She shrugged. "No, I told my truth." He smiled faintly. "Either way, you reminded them who you are." For the next few weeks, they stayed out of public drama. The beauty bar flourished. Brands reached out again. A women's empowerment podcast invited her to speak. She accepted. Her episode went viral, "How to Rebuild When Everyone's Watching." The host asked if forgiveness ever gets easier. Rasheeda smiled slightly. "It doesn't," she said, "but growth gets louder than pain if you let it." Still, behind that strength, there were nights when she lay awake beside Kirk, staring at the ceiling, wondering if peace was real or just temporary silence before the next test. One night, unable to sleep, she whispered, "You think we'll ever stop being a headline?" Kirk turned toward her, half asleep. "Maybe not," he said, "but maybe we learn to write the story ourselves." That sentence stayed with her. The next morning, she called her lawyer, her manager, and a trusted writer. "I'm ready to tell everything," she said. "No spin, no edits, no producers, just truth." 2 months later, the announcement dropped. Rasheeda Frost Unfiltered, a new docuspecial coming to Netflix. It wasn't VH1. It wasn't Love and Hip Hop, it was hers. The trailer alone broke the internet. Clips showed raw moments: Rasheeda crying during the leak scandal, Kirk apologizing off camera, old footage of them building their first boutique. Fans flooded the comments. This is the real story. When it premiered, millions watched. The final scene showed Rasheeda standing inside the beauty bar, looking out the window at the Atlanta skyline. "People ask me why I stayed," she said in voiceover. "The truth is, leaving is easy. Rebuilding takes more courage. And I've got plenty of that left." As the credits rolled, the screen faded to black. followed by one final message, dedicated to anyone who ever rebuilt themselves in public. The documentary turned her into something beyond a reality star. She became a symbol of endurance, authenticity, and self-reinvention. Sponsorships doubled, interviews poured in, and Kirk, quiet, humbled, stood in the background, content to let her shine. One evening, after weeks of press, she came home exhausted but peaceful. The house smelled of candles, dinner on the stove, music low. Kirk was there, apron on, smiling. "You did it," he said. She leaned against the counter, smiling faintly. "We did it." He laughed softly. "Nah, this one's yours. I just followed your lead." They ate quietly. No cameras, no audience, just them. Later, as the city lights flickered through the windows, Rasheeda said, "You know what I realized?" He looked up. "What?" "Every time the world tried to end us, it just showed us who we really are. We're messy, but we're still standing." Kirk reached for her hand, nodding. "Standing's enough for me." Outside, a storm began to roll again, soft and slow, the way Atlanta always hummed before the rain. But this time, there was no fear in the sound, just peace. Months passed and the noise reshaped itself into something softer. Atlanta stopped arguing about whether Kirk had changed and started watching how he moved. Every morning he arrived at the beauty bar before opening, running inventory, handling deliveries, talking to vendors with the patience that didn't belong to the man in old headlines. He kept his phone face down, left events early, and answered questions before they became doubts. Rasheeda didn't reward him with easy forgiveness. She measured him in the small moments when a shipment was late and he didn't snap, when a comment section turned ugly and he didn't jump online to fix his image, when a rumor tried to tug at their peace and he ignored it like a passing car horn. Consistency replaced speeches. Effort replaced promises. One Sunday afternoon, she sat at the front desk, flipping through appointment cards while the soft hum of dryers and chatter filled the room. A little girl in a sparkly jacket tugged her sleeve and whispered, "You're so pretty," then ran back to her mom. The compliment landed like a feather but felt heavy in the best way. Later that night, she told Kirk, "I'm not the same woman who survived you. I'm the woman who built without you and chose to let you in again. There's a difference." He nodded, eyes steady. "I know. I'm not asking to rewrite history. I'm asking to keep showing up." The Netflix special changed the air around them. People came to the beauty bar not to gawk, but to thank her. Women in work uniforms, students with budgets and bold lipstick, aunties with strong opinions queued for photos and advice. One said, "I watched you breathe through the mess and still keep your business open. I left mine last week. I feel free." Another hugged her and whispered, "I stayed, but on my terms. Your story helped me set them." Each face felt like a mirror of some past version of herself, scared, stubborn, hopeful. She cried quietly in the office after closing. Not from sadness but from the strange dignity of being seen for her choices instead of her pain. That was the week the kids asked the question no one had dared to ask out loud. Over dinner, with the TV off and the table crowded with bowls and laughter, their son said, "Are you guys going to do a renewal or something?" Forks paused midair. Kirk glanced at Rasheeda. She met his eyes and then looked back at the kids. "Why you asking?" she said, smiling. "'Cause you look like you already married again." He shrugged. "Just without the party." The room softened with laughter. Later, in the kitchen, Kirk rinsed plates and said, "I meant what I said at the very beginning. No more surprises. So I won't plan anything unless you want it." She leaned against the counter, arms folded, thinking, "If we do it," she said slowly, "it's not a show. No velvet ropes. No 1,000 cameras. It's ours." He nodded. "Ours." Word traveled the way good rumors do, quietly at first, then with purpose. Not a televised vow renewal. Not a brand deal. Not a ratings play. A private ceremony for family and a small circle of friends. They picked a date late in the fall when the air would be cool and Atlanta light would turn honeygold by afternoon. The location was an old glass house on the edge of the city, a greenhouse turned event space, all ferns and warm bulbs, damp soil and faint citrus. The kind of space that made vows sound older and truer. When the planner asked for a theme, Rasheeda said, "Rebuilt." No theatrics, no fake tears. Just truth stitched into small details, linen place cards pressed with tiny gold initials. A single-string quartet, candles that smelled like vanilla and rain. Carly came by the beauty bar 2 weeks before the date. Awkward for once, all attitudes sanded off. "I owe you," she said, voice low. "I laughed in that recording. I made it worse." Rasheeda eyed her, not angry anymore, just tired of the cycle. "You didn't make it worse. You made it easy for them to clip." Carly swallowed. I talk too fast when I'm nervous. I didn't think they'd use it like that. I'm sorry. The apology was real, clumsy, and human. We grew up on cameras, Rasheeda said, voice measured. We learned to keep some things for the room and some for the world. Learn it with me or stand back from me. Carly nodded. I'm learning. She left a velvet box on the counter inside, a delicate hairpin studded with tiny pearls shaped like dew. Not payment, not penance. A gesture. The night before the ceremony, Atlanta's weather turned on them. A line of storms rolled in from the west, thick and moody, the kind that turned the sky purple at the edges. The planner texted options for tents, backup spaces, alternate layouts. Kirk stayed calm. We got married through worse than rain, he said lightly. We can renew under it. But as thunder stitched across the sky and rain battered the glass house, the planner's emails grew frantic. The power flickered. The quartet canceled. The florist called to say half their arrangements were stalled behind a flooded intersection. An old version of Kirk would have spiraled calls, blame heat. This one grabbed towels, rearranged chairs, and started moving tables with the staff. He taped cords, lifted crates, and asked the electrician where he could help, listening instead of barking. When a fuse blew and the glass house went dark, he held up the flashlight and said, "We got candles, right? Then we got ceremony." Rasheeda arrived in a simple silk slip dress and a shawl, the color of cream. No cathedral train, no glitter, just fabric that moved like breath. Her hair was pinned with the dewdrop pearls from Carly. A quiet nod. She stepped into the warm dark and saw Kirk at the far end of the aisle. Jacket undone, shirt sleeves rolled, rainwater darkening his cuffs, face lit by 100 small flames. For a heartbeat, the room vanished and she saw the whole road behind them, every messy argument, each dead-eyed apology, the sleeping on opposite sides of a bed that felt like a border. The mornings, she opened the shop alone, the text messages that split her chest open, and the apologies that didn't stitch it back. And then she saw the lift gates he carried for deliveries, the bike he sold, the silence he kept instead of sparking with strangers online. The effort that didn't ask for witnesses. She walked. No officiant in a robe, no sermon about sin and redemption. Yandi stood between them with a small card in her hand and tears already threatening. Say only what you can keep, she whispered to both, then folded the card and tucked it away. Kirk began without notes. I'm not promising perfection, he said quietly, the candles licking shadows across his face. I'm promising presence. I'm promising honesty that hurts less than lies. I'm promising to build where I broke and to listen where I used to defend. I don't deserve a second first chance. But I'm standing here because you're giving me one anyway, and I will not waste it. He stopped, jaw tight, eyes wet but steady. Rasheeda didn't pretend the room was a dream. She spoke like she did at the shop, like she did in confessionals when she refused to produce tears on cue. I'm not promising to forget, she said softly. I'm promising to remember who I am inside this marriage. I'm promising to keep my name and the work I built, to love you without disappearing. I'm promising to meet your effort with mine, to leave if I'm ever asked to shrink, and to stay when we're both growing. Thunder rolled long and low, like approval. A gust of wind rattled the glass, and somewhere in the distance the city hummed back. When it was done, there was no kiss for the camera, no dip, no dramatic violin swell. They held each other's hands and let the room exhale. The quartet had sent over a small Bluetooth speaker as an apology, and someone paired it to a phone. Frank Ocean slipped quietly into the room, then Sod, then a playlist the kids had snuck together called for Mom and Dad. Dinner was warm and imperfect, some dishes late. Others improvised and people laughed the way they do when they know the point isn't performance. Carly toasted without theatrics. Spice sent a voice note that played over a speaker. Love real when it survive rain. Mona came late, stood in the back, and didn't ask for release forms. For once, the story belonged to the people in the room. When the rain lightened, the glass house fogged at the corners, candles burned low, and the kids dragged them to the middle for a slow dance. Kirk's hand settled at the small of her back, the way it used to when they were young and hungry. You shaken, he whispered. I'm not scared, she said. I'm just here. He laughed under his breath. That's the best thing you ever said to me. They swayed in the dim, not graceful, just present. Outside, the parking lot shimmered with puddles, each one holding a copy of the candlelight like 100 tiny altars. The days after felt different but not enchanted. They went back to work. The beauty bar needed a new dryer. A supplier sent the wrong shade range. An employee cried in the break room because her rent went up. Life returned to its ordinary edges, and that was the blessing. In the quiet, they rewrote the parts of their routine that used to break them. They checked in before checking feeds, held meetings without sniping, replaced public proving with private transparency. When a blog tried to stir old dust with a lazy headline, it failed to stick. The audience had shifted to. After the documentary, after the rainlit vows, the appetite for disaster had dulled. People wanted them to win. A brand partnership arrived that would have thrilled an earlier version of them 7 figures. Cross-promotion, scripted slice-of-life features. The contract called for staged mini-conflicts to boost engagement. Kirk looked at the clause, then at her. "We could do it," he said. "We don't need to," she replied. "We are not for sale like that anymore." They passed, and the email thread ended without fireworks. 2 years ago, turning it down would have hurt. Now it felt like choosing oxygen. Sometimes the past still knocked. Once, at a red light, Kirk saw the corner where he'd taken a phone call that altered the next 3 years of their lives. He stared hard at the crosswalk, the memory like a bruise you press on to see if it still aches. She saw his jaw tighten and put a hand over his. Not to erase the memory, just to say "I know." On another night, she woke from a dream where her phone lit the whole bedroom with a name she never wanted to see again. She sat up, breathing too fast. He didn't ask questions. He got water, turned on the lamp, and waited until her shoulders dropped. They learned that recovery wasn't a ribbon cutting, it was a maintenance schedule. When the first anniversary of the beauty bar arrived, they didn't throw a giant party. They opened early, gave discounts to walk-ins, and ran a free workshop for teens about skincare, entrepreneurship, and boundaries. "Post less when you're hurting," she told them, smiling. "Write more. It ages better." A girl in the front row asked, "How do you know when someone really changed?" Rasheeda thought about contracts and candles, storms and small fixes, public apologies and private repairs. "You don't," she said. "You watch. And while you're watching, you make sure you don't stop changing either." That evening, after the shop closed and the last balloon drooped against a mirror, they sat on the floor with takeout. The room smelled like hairspray and sugar. Kirk leaned back on his hands, looking around. "We kept it," he said. "We kept it," she echoed. A notification blinked on her. Phone an article about the Frost blueprint, a columnist. Writing that maybe the real plot twist wasn't a scandal but to people. Choosing ordinary devotion after extraordinary mistakes. She didn't share it. She put the phone face down and rested her head on his shoulder. Atlanta slid toward another summer. Streetlights washed the roads in amber, and the city's pulse thumped low and confident. The glass house where they said new vows reopened fully lit, hosting baby showers and small weddings that smelled like peonies and rain. Sometimes, when they drove past on their way home, they slowed to look without speaking. They didn't need to narrate their lives anymore. The story was sturdy enough to stand without a voiceover. One night, just before closing, a woman in a postal uniform walked in carrying a small package. "Last delivery," she smiled. "Been in the back of my truck all day." Inside the box was a folded page from a magazine, an old interview with them from years ago, where they smiled with their whole faces and promised forever like it was simple. Someone had written across the margin in tiny neat letters, "People aren't reruns. They can be new episodes if they work for it." There was no signature. She taped it inside a cabinet only she opened. They didn't plan a grand second honeymoon. Instead, they stole small trips, a motel by a lake 2 hours out where the coffee was bad but the silence was perfect. A weekday matinee where they were the only ones in the theater. A late-night drive just to hear an album from start to finish. They learned to adore the middle scenes. The cuts no one saves. The b-roll of a life that finally belonged to them. One humid evening, as the sky folded into cobalt and the cicadas sang like static, Kirk stood on the porch with a dish towel over his shoulder and called inside. "You ready?" She stepped out, wiping lotion into her hands, hair loose, face soft. "For what?" she teased. He gestured toward the driveway. The kids had strung dollar store lights along the fence and pulled 2 folding chairs to the center like a makeshift stage. A speaker waited on the steps. They said it's date night. He grinned. She laughed, surprised, then shook her head. "Look at us," she said, taking his hand. "Look at us," he echoed. They danced beneath cheap bulbs that made halos in the warm night. No vows, no witnesses, no trending tag. Only a couple moving on beat, a city breathing around them, and the sense finally that the next scene didn't need saving. It only needed living. Late summer slid into fall, quiet and unhurried. The beauty bar kept its rhythm. The morning hum of blow dryers, the smell of coffee. Kirk's low voice in the back room taking calls that no longer carried tension. Rasheeda's laugh started returning in pieces, light, unguarded, the sound that used to draw a room's attention. Atlanta had moved on to new stories, but their small corner of the city had settled into something steadier. On a Sunday evening they closed early, The shop windows glowed from the last light, and outside the air was heavy with the first promise of rain. She was counting receipts, hair pulled into a loose bun, when Kirk came out with 2 mugs of tea. "You ever think we'd make it this far?" he asked. She looked up, smiling. "Not like this, not so quiet?" He handed her a mug. "Quiet suits us now." She nodded. "Yeah, it does." The quiet began to hold meaning. Customers came and went without expecting gossip. They wanted advice, hairstyles, sometimes just to sit near her and talk about beginnings. Kirk spent his evenings mentoring younger artists who wanted to turn fame into business instead of chaos. One night, after locking up, they stood in the parking lot and watched the city lights shimmer against the wet pavement. "We made peace boring," he said, half joking. "Good," she replied. "Boring keeps us alive." Weeks passed like that, steady and unremarkable. They did small things: movie nights, breakfast runs, unposted dates. Their children visited often, bringing laughter that filled the house. Even the dog, a lazy rescue they'd adopted in spring, started following Kirk everywhere, as if sensing he needed forgiveness from every living thing around him. On the anniversary of their renewal, they didn't plan a big event. They drove back to the glass house alone. The vines had grown thicker. The smell of soil and rain still clung to the air. The caretaker recognized them and unlocked the gate. "Just wanted to see it," Kirk said quietly. They walked the length of the empty aisle where candles had once burned, now faint with dust. Rasheeda traced her hand over the stone ledge, whispering, "It feels smaller than I remember." "Maybe we grew," he said. "Maybe," she answered. They sat down on the steps, watching the last light fade. No cameras, no echo of applause, just the sound of crickets outside the glass. She leaned into him. "You know what I think now," she said, "that the real story isn't the scandals or the vows or the headlines. It's this, showing up when nobody's looking." He turned to her, eyes soft. "Then we finally got it right." Later that night, she posted a single photo to her page. The glass house, empty, bathed in sunset. The caption read, "Peace isn't perfect. It's just consistent." Within an hour, it had thousands of comments, friends, strangers all, saying the same thing. This is growth. The Frost story ended not with noise but with stillness. No final season, no dramatic fade out, just two people living in the same frame again. Quieter, older, better. And as the lights of Atlanta shimmered beyond their porch, the rain began to fall soft, steady, familiar. Not a storm this time, just weather, just life continuing, the way it was always meant to. Winter came early that year, not cold enough for snow, but sharp enough that the streets of Atlanta looked clearer and quieter. Most nights, the Frost house smelled like cinnamon and fried chicken. The kind of warmth that only happens when a home has survived chaos and chosen calm. Rasheeda spent more time in her office upstairs, sketching new product lines for the beauty bar. Kirk handled the warehouse side, learning inventory systems that once would have bored him. They had fallen into a rhythm that didn't need proving. In the evenings, she liked to drive alone after closing, the city lights sliding across her windshield like slow fireworks. Sometimes she stopped by the glass house again, just to sit outside and listen to the air move. She never posted about those drives. Some memories worked better without witnesses. Kirk started doing small live sessions with new producers talking about business, loyalty, and mistakes. His tone had changed. Gone was the defensiveness, replaced by something steadier, almost gentle. Once, a younger artist asked, "How do you keep your marriage after losing it on TV?" He smiled. "You stop performing." The Frost & Frost beauty brand expanded into candles, skincare, and a simple fragrance line called Rebuild. It wasn't glamorous, but it sold out within a week. Fans said it smelled like clean hope. Rasheeda laughed when she read that. "Hope doesn't smell clean," she told Kirk. "It smells like work." He grinned. "Then that's the realest ad we could ask for." Their Netflix special got nominated for an award, but they didn't attend the ceremony. They watched from home, curled up on the couch, half asleep before the category was even called. When a friend texted that they'd won, she smiled softly and turned off the TV. "Let's just keep winning like this," she said. Kirk nodded. "Like this." The next morning, she found a handwritten letter slid under the boutique door. No return name, just neat cursive. "Thank you for showing that fixing doesn't mean forgetting." She kept it in her wallet for months. By spring, the city began to buzz again with new drama, new stars, new stories. The Frosts were still in the headlines occasionally, but the tone had changed. Now it was business achievements, charity events, mentorship programs. The noise had softened. When Mona Scott visited the beauty bar during a press stop, she hugged Rasheeda tight and said, "You figured out the ending nobody else gets." Rasheeda smiled. No ending, just a better middle. They celebrated the shop's second anniversary with a block of event-free food, live music, a raffle for single mothers to win a full glam package. Kirk worked the grill, laughing with teenagers who barely remembered his scandals. Rasheeda handled the stage, mic in hand, speaking to the crowd not like a celebrity but like someone who had earned peace the long way. "This place isn't about makeup," she said into the warm afternoon air. "It's about starting over without shame." When the sun dropped and the music faded, she and Kirk sat on the curb, eating leftover barbecue from paper plates. She wiped sauce from her fingers, looked up at the darkening sky, and said, "You notice how quiet Atlanta feels now?" He nodded. "Feels like a clean page. Maybe that's what we needed all along," she said. "Not a plot twist, just a blank page." They drove home with the windows down, the city wind soft against their faces. Traffic lights blinked red, then green, then red again, steady as breathing. In the rearview mirror, Rasheeda caught Kirk's reflection. His eyes were calm. No guilt, no tension, just a man who had finally learned how to stay. At home, she lit one of their rebuild candles and placed it on the nightstand. The room filled with the scent vanilla, sandalwood, and something faintly metallic, like rain against a tin roof. She whispered, almost to herself, "We're good, right?" Kirk looked up from his book. "We're better than good." She turned off the lamp, the flame's glow still trembling between them. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. There were no cameras, no producers, no scripts left to finish, just the quiet hum of a life that finally belonged to them. And as the candle burned low, melting into its own light, the story that had once lived 4 headlines settled into something gentler. 2 people who had broken and mended, who learned to love without performance, who found beauty in ordinary peace. Atlanta would forget parts of their story, as the world always does, but somewhere, under that city's endless glow, the frosts kept dancing slow to a song only they could hear. If you've been here since the first rumor, the first argument, the first apology that never seemed enough, then you already know this story wasn't just about Kirk and Rasheeda. It was about what happens when love gets tested in front of the world, when pride and pain become public property, and when rebuilding has to happen while everyone's watching. But now, after every scandal, every headline, and every long silence that followed, what's left is something real. To people who finally stopped performing and started living, this journey started as another love and hip-hop moment, a storyline, a headline, a trend, but it became a mirror, a reminder that growth doesn't need approval, forgiveness doesn't erase boundaries, and healing isn't a straight road. Kirk learned to show love through action, not apology. Rasheeda learned that strength isn't silence, it's choosing peace even when pride screams louder. And together, they built something no script could fake, a life that feels honest when the cameras turn off. So if you've watched every twist, if you shouted at the screen, if you cried, laughed, rolled your eyes, or saw a bit of yourself in the chaos, this is your moment to. Because this story isn't just entertainment, it's proof that pain doesn't have to be permanent. It can be recycled into purpose. It can teach you how to rebuild. We want to know what you think. What would you have done? Would you have stayed and fought for love, or walked away and started fresh? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us your version of rebuild, and if you've ever had to start again after being misunderstood, after being hurt, after losing something that once meant everything. Type "I'm rebuilding" to in the chat. Let's see how many people out there are writing new chapters tonight. Make sure you hit that like button if this story made you feel something, because every like tells YouTube that real stories still matter. Subscribe if you believe that redemption deserves airtime, not just drama. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because there's more coming. New beginnings, new faces, and stories that remind you growth can be messy but still beautiful. And to everyone watching right now, thank you for staying, for seeing beyond the noise, beyond the headlines, and into the hearts behind them. Keep your peace, protect your boundaries, and never let the world convince you that broken means finished. This was Kirk surprises Rasheeda with a new business gift, but fans say he's finally changing. And maybe, for once, they're right. Stay tuned, stay kind, and as always, keep watching, because love might fall apart, but on this channel, it always finds a way to rise again.